Hello, good morning or afternoon or wherever you happen to be in the world. My name is Kevin Buckland and I'm an artivist. Um, but what is an artivist? What does that even mean? Are you just making up words? Um, I like to think about artivism as art with a purpose. Um, in many, Similar to the same way is the difference between speed and velocity when we're talking about physics. Speed is how fast an object is moving, whereas velocity is the rate at which an object changes position. So for speed, you can be running around in circles, and that's still speed, or you can be going here and back and there and back, or going off in all different directions. But with velocity, it's really about how you are changing in relation to the point you're at. And I think about artivism the same way, in that how are we using our art to push out in a strategic direction? Much about art is exploration of new ideas, which is indispensable to the growth of human thought. But at times such as these in the Anthropocene, I think we need to be a bit strategic. So, thus, artivism. And I want to talk to you today about one single project that I've been engaged with now for 3 years, called the Seachange Voyage. And this project started in Troy, New York, but the idea actually started in Troy, in Turkey. I was traveling, and I had the good fortune to be able to visit Troy. I had studied mythology in university, so this was, this is the place where the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's a place of legends, and so I ended up hitchhiking there. Got there, expecting to see this massive fortified city or the ruins of it, and it was tiny. Troy was never that big a city. It was never that strategic. It was never that important. The only thing that was that great about it was the story. And in that moment, my perception of history changed. Is suddenly a lot of the same issues that mythology grapples with, the role of the storyteller, came to life, and realized how important actually is the storyteller uh, in changing the course of history. And and this continues to this day. If you've seen Hamilton, or listened to it because you can't afford the tickets, one of the fundamental questions is, who tells your story? How are we bringing this knowledge forward? Which storytelling has played this essential role throughout all of human history of passing knowledge forward. So I want to talk about the Seachange Voyage, which is a project that has happened twice now. And um, it's kind of originated from this idea of, how can we be a story worth telling, like Troy? How can we be creating a scenario whereby we are doing something that the word can then spread on its own? That we're not responsible for pushing out this information, but that you create memes that can then travel out on their own. And this story began around the idea of water. How can we be engaging with the discourses around water in new ways? Thinking about the climate crisis, we know water will be the next big issue for this planet. The water wars are already starting in Eastern Africa, where I was just a few months ago. And and the origin of this project came from an article written by Jody Dean, um, about a movement without demands, about the Occupy movement. And it suggested, what if the anti-fracking movements, instead of positioning themselves as anti-fracking, positioned themselves as pro-water, and engaged around discourses of water as commons? Then you could be resisting fracking at the same time that you are creating a space for remunicipalization, deprivatization of public water systems, and protection of water in all of its different forms and in all of the different struggles that intersect around water. And I was really struck by this concept of, okay, but how do we do this? How do we create a, a form of activism that can engage water as commons? And the idea came about of we should be on the water. We need to be directly engaging with the water. So I teamed up with a fantastic Brooklyn-based art collective called Mare Liberum, which in Latin means the free seas, and they are dedicated to opening access to the anarchy of waters to people. The idea that waters have retained themselves as a space without private property, without borders, and by improving people's access to these spaces, then they can encounter this other deprivatized ways of being. So together we teamed up and resurrected a traditional technology of boat building from Troy, New York, which actually used to be the boat building capital of the United States, but they weren't building boats as you might imagine. They were building boats out of paper. So we went up there and built, through a series of community workshops, a small flotilla of papier-mâché canoes. And our plan was to travel down the Hudson River from Troy to Manhattan, having community meetups all along the way, and mobilizing people towards the People's Climate March that would be happening just a few weeks after our journey. And the trip was incredibly transformative, I think, for everyone involved. And to me, it really tested this idea of the power of story. Everywhere we went, people were showing up just because they wanted to see paper boats. They thought, like, this is so impossible, this is so improbable. And to me, this is precisely the emotion we need to be cultivating in response to the climate crisis, is this feeling that, oh, wow, I didn't think that was possible. And we really liked the poetry of these paper boats, this idea of these fragile, thin vessels on very rough waters, against all odds, improbable chances of survival, but everybody really wanting them to make it. And almost all of our boats made it to Manhattan. We actually went around Manhattan, and then joined the People's Climate March as part of the boat block, again, talking about water as commons. And as we were trying to build this discourse around the water as commons, we adopted as our theme, we all live downstream. We thought that this is a tangible way in which people can relate to the commons, is the idea that no one pollutes their water. They pollute water. That water flows around, cycles through, comes back to us. So this idea of that karmic cycles of pollution, we thought was more accessible in water than in land, where there might be private property. That is a very established concept. So then, everywhere we went along our journey, people were showing up, curious to see these paper boats. And still to this day, I'm amazed at how often I talk about this project and people say, oh, yeah, I heard about that. And what we realized is I think we had succeeded. We were a very small group doing kind of a small, odd project, but we were intentionally creating a story bigger than ourselves. And that story has spread. And we continue to spread the story. Personally, I'm now writing a book about the whole project because it impacted me that much, and I think we were a story worth telling. So I want to tell that story. And now I want to tell you about the second iteration, the second Seachange voyage. But first, a quick commercial break.
Buenas noches, damas y caballeros. Perdón por la intrusión, pero aquí tenemos una oferta sin comparación. Una oferta que no puedes resistir. Este es una liquidación total de todo el Ártico. Liquidación total del Ártico. Todo, todo, todo. Rápido, rápido, rápido. Sí, es verdad. Tenemos todos los glaciares en precios bajas. Pero es importante que pides ahora, porque estos glaciares no van a existir mucho más tiempo. Llama ahora el número abajo de la pantalla para pedir tu propio glaciar. Llama ahora, estos son los últimos días de liquidación total del Ártico.
Welcome back. Sorry for the commercial interruption. Um, so now we're going to move on to the Seachange voyage that happened just this year. In fact, I just returned a week ago from it. And this project was slightly different and slightly similar to the first Seachange. But again, it was constructed around this idea of how can we be embodying stories worth telling as we cultivate a deepening resistance or commitment to protection of water as commons. So this year's Seachange voyage was slightly different. We decided not to do paper boats because it was fantastic, but it was a lot of work keeping those things afloat. And on our first trip, we had met a fantastic boat builder named Dave Borden, who is innovating solar-powered boats on the Hudson River. And, while we were sort of paddling away, he quite calmly sat there and motors by about 5 times the speed of us, powered by sunlight. So this year we teamed up with him and his boat, Solar Sal. If you want to see more, you can check out solarsal.com. And this project was really about weaving together stories of resistance and resilience. In our first journey, we had traveled down the Hudson River, and we realized we were traveling the same route as the virtual pipeline of fossil fuels all along the way. That companies such as Global Partners were passing fracked Bakken crude oil, which is the same oil that goes through the DAPL, Dakota Access Pipeline, and the same oil that the Standing Rock protests were about. This same oil is being passed into Albany by these bomb trains, freighters that are not supposed to be taking explosives. They should not be on this kind of rail infrastructure. Derailments are happening all the time. Explosions are inevitable. All this oil is coming through Albany and then down the river. So we were actually, on our first voyage, we realized we were actually following the transport of this fracked crude oil. Also, there were some barges going up and down the river, and there still are today. So we started to understand our project as both following the waters and following the oil. And more on our first trip, the project became focused on this resistance. How can we be sharing information, making sure people know about this, making sure they know the dangers that such oil infrastructure holds? For 5 miles, these bomb trains run right next to the Hudson River. A derailment there would mean a train could tip into the water. Some of the oil floats, some of it sinks. Stuff that sinks would be nearly impossible to clean up, and the stuff that floats could literally set the river on fire. And after spending so much time on this river, I'm madly in love with it. I won't allow that to happen to it. So this year, we decided to weave together stories of resistance and resilience. We visited urban permaculture teaching centers and did toxic tours of fossil fuel infrastructure. And we tried to hold both of these tensions because this is the world we live in today. This is the compromise that capitalism has placed us all in. We're all inside of this system. We're all complicit in it in some ways. So our resistance becomes in many ways more an act of sabotage from inside, cultural sabotage, rather than resistance from outside. This year we also really wanted to focus on storytelling. So instead of just people that were excited about boats, we really focused on artists. I organized a floating artivist residency. Artists applied to join, and we put together a great crew of 10 people that were going to travel together, both absorbing information so that they could then convert it through their own alchemy into art, and also so they could share their experiences along the way. So along the way, we, again, had community meetups and performances all along the way, but now it was really focused on the performance, on sharing new ways of talking about these issues, and some amazing artists were on board. Also, another goal we had was to start deepening people's connection to water. Our first trip had been constructed around this idea of water as commons, but now we wanted to be deepening that. both in ourselves and in others, around what is our spiritual connection with water? What is our commitment to water? How are we all water protectors? How are we all water? Asking these questions and posing them in such a way for reflection. All along the way, we carried water. We invited people to bring water from a place they cherished, trying to weave these waters together as we wove the stories together. And this year, and part of that we saw also was the work of healing. Many of us have grown up without a direct, intimate, sensual connection with nature. And how can we be recovering that loss, which, in my opinion, is part of what has led to such a toxic and extractivist relationship to the earth. And part of that was also addressing the historical legacy of this area. Our journey started in traditional Mohawk territory, and about a third of our crew were Mohawk artists and activists who had been at Standing Rock on the front lines for months. And so bringing people together in common struggle, people native to this land and people whose ancestors had come here. How can we be working together to protect this common land in ways that shares its abundance and resists the deepening injustices that climate change is bringing? And another goal was to actually physically be connecting the towns all along the river to the story of Standing Rock. That helping people remember that those trains you can hear in the background, those oil barges you see, that's the same story. This is the same water, and this is the same oil. So we organized these meetups, and by mixing together local activists talking about local issues with first-hand stories from Standing Rock, culture, performances, poetry about water, we came together. So I just want to show you a few little samples of some of the artists on board. This first one is Hala Liza, a fantastic poetess and singer. Enjoy.
I grew up in a family where the word God made everybody a little bit uneasy. My parents were atheist, later agnostic, but when it came down to it, I found they really had their own quirky and beautiful definitions for God. When pressed, my father said God is the force that binds hydrogen and oxygen to make water. So God lives in every molecule of water. So a fish is always in the arms of God, a child of God, and our blood is brimming with God. I grew up a latchkey kid, staring at the Hudson River through the iron bars of a balcony, and I wanted to swim. I wanted to splash through the strobing glitter of the sun-kissed waters. I wanted to hop over sun-baked rocks, dangle over a dock, come home with the river in my hair, come home with the river streaming down my skin like I had one summer in Maine. But nobody swam in the Hudson. I had a friend who jumped in after her dog jumped in, and she was rushed to the hospital for a tetanus shot. The invisible waste of industry had chased any trace of deity out of those waters, perhaps it seemed, right? In a way, it seems that way sometimes. PCBs, 1.3 million pounds of them. Invisible wastes of industry, no scent, no taste, no color, no sheen. They tumbled and swirled downstream. They wound thorn crowns around king sturgeon. They encaged the winged sea robin. They sunk deep in the sediment and seeped into all of them. Rib mussels, eels, striped bass, and blue crab. The bone-laced flesh of American shad. Even amber sax dragonflies left to hatch in the muddy shallows till the river, once hallowed, turned underwater cemetery, dotted with the death stare of animals whose ancestors once basked in pristine clarity. I asked, why? Why? In my waking days and in my nights, I ask the rain, I ask the trees, I ask the sky, why would someone poison a river? Why would someone poison a body filled with God? And my question rose high above the sleeping banks and hovered there in the silence. It imploded, and I woke up white as a phantom in the ash of my own question, a 9-year-old girl starting to resemble stone in a world I was finding so baffling, so hard to call home. And no one from the sleeping banks rose and called me over and whispered to me, "Child, profit has been our prophet. Money has been our deity."
Wow. And one more artist we'll share with you from our trip was a Mohawk from Activism, hip-hop rhymer, singer, rapper, J.O.C. Check it out.
You can have it all. You can have it all. I will let you down. No more. No more. I will make you. No more. No more. You can see it in my eyes that I've been through a lot. Though the smile on my face just might throw you up and lost for a minute. Then I found myself. Then I lost him again. He was riding out. Forget that. It's time to come back and take my place. Put the guns on the rack. Still feel the safe. Getting money different ways. No more getting chased by the cops when it's hot. Instead hit the stage and pay without worrying about my life. No more near death or 25 to life. Now I could live it up from 25 to life. Give it all up. I'm 25 and bright. I'ma get it right, cause I'm sick of being wrong. That's why I take my story and put it in the songs, knowing all along that I can change the game. Even when that day comes, you'll hear me say, I'll say, you could have it all. You can 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 have it all. I will let you down. No more. No more. I will make you. No more. No more. I'm sick of hearing lies, so there's no more asking questions. Forget what they saying, I'd rather keep guessing. Another lesson learned, treat it all like a blessing. Music comes first, everything else is second. Won't stop till I'm at the top, never giving up. I gotta take a shot, who will always be a prisoner. Looking back at life, saying, yeah, I could've lived it up. Would've, should've, not me, cause I give it up. Always have, always will, but that'll never change. But it's so hard to keep myself in the right lane. Dealing with the rain that's pouring down the pain. They just keep saying it's a part of the game. No more playing. Now it's time to get so serious. Born in a war, that's why the real feeling is. Do it for my natives that still remain. For everyone else, you'll hear me say, I say, you could have it all. You can have it all. You can have it all. My empire of dirt. You can have it all. You can have it all. I will let you down. No more. No more. No more, no more. And that's the thing, we can't have it all. If we go and get what we want, we have to fight for what we want. Because if we don't ever speak up and we don't fight for it, how are they ever going to know we want it? So it's always about fighting, always about building, and always about sharing. Always about sharing. So I got 2 more songs left. And I just released this one. Try to change my outlook on life, but I'm always dealing with something to test my will and my might. No time for healing here. Ever since a kid, I was fighting for the skin that I went. Born in the ghetto, raised on the res, my house still there. Nothing was working. I moved the city, I had to leave. I know I have a purpose. I'm worthless when I'm high like a fiend, but there's no in between when there's no outlet for me. I'm either sleeping for days or I'll be going for weeks. PTSD, depression, feel it on the regular. Second guessing where I'm stepping, all I see competitors. Almost made it to a place where I could feel my inner peace, but then I had to wake up and realize that it was all a dream. Trying to chase my dreams, but they're always in the lead. I will succeed, yes, I will succeed. Odds roll against me, but I still roll with age. Flows with the breeze, blows with the breeze. Finally realize my heart is golden, body's real still. And I'm real still, you're real still. Some days I wonder why it is I'm still here. But I'm still here, yeah, I'm still here. Still get my demons lingering. Stressing by my dolo, money goes when it's coming in. Should've already known, no, push me back to the point of hustling. Panties for my song shows, I break even with them. It's all for the love of the music, building my empire. No Terrence here, it's Mr. J.O. and I'm working hard. Back to sleeping on some couches, doing what I have to. Told you in a couple weeks, it's a queen up in the bedroom. Used to think I'd be dead soon, now I know it's not the case. I was meant to suffer more until I learned I had to change. Knowing that it's not the day, you need to know I try my all. Realize I'm meant for greater things, it's just always against the odds. Trying to chase my dreams, but they're always in the lead. I will succeed, yes, I will succeed. Odds are all against me, but I still roll with ease. Blows with the breeze, blows with the breeze. Trying to chase my dreams, but they're always in the lead. I will succeed, yes, I will succeed. Odds are all against me, but I still roll with ease. Blows with the breeze, blows with the breeze. Finally realized my heart is golden, but it's real still. And I'm real still, you're real still. Some days I wonder why it is I'm still here. But I'm still here, yeah, we're still here. And that's the thing, we're still here. We're still fighting. And we're gonna continue to do so until we feel the children are gonna be safe. Until we know our elders are gonna be safe. Until we know our brothers and sisters and family members can breathe that fresh air and drink that clean water, we will continue to fight. And that's why I went to Standing Rock. That's why I went to the front lines. Because I'm not scared to protect you guys and protect this water and protect this land. Because I realize if I don't step up, who else is gonna? And then I see my brothers there. I see my family there. That put me in the right place. So the last thing about this last song, it's super special to me and everybody else that gets a sample of it. And what it is before I went there, I had a little inclination of like, okay, what am I gonna do? Maybe I can go there and help teach some music or do some workshops, and you know, because that's what I do. I make music, and I've been doing that for 15 years. So it's like that's all I know. So I'm like, what could I really share when I get there, and how do I contribute? The second we pulled up and got into camp, hey, can you help us unload this wood over here? Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, do you know where there's some water? Oh man, I'm pretty sure I just seen some over there. And it was like that every day, all day. And I loved it. Because then I got to come back and see you smile, and then you had some food for me. And then, oh, your gloves are worn out. Here, try these ones. Oh, you guys need a ride to the city? Oh, we got hotel rooms so everybody can take showers. And it was constantly like that, and it was getting bigger. And then, you know, there was that real love inside there. Still had to deal with infiltrators and obviously the people that want to stop these things, but that's like with any movement. That's what we got to deal with in life, and it's not letting them change your heart or your opinion, especially when you know you're right. So I had the opportunity of writing this song in Mohawk tent, right behind the dome at camp, and so it's close to the heart, and it was in the middle of all the chaos. I wrote it and recorded it around January 21st, so it was right in the flux of when we didn't know what was really going to happen. We won't go away. We won't go. Sitting back at the camp like nighttime with them lamp lights. We're warriors, we been fighting. Front line with them flags fly. Put the wire around, taking that down. Prayerful action in the nighttime. Winter lightning in the background. No dapole, no pipelines. This is all time, that 7th gen. Hate fire and it burns within. You can see it in the eyes that we see through the lies. We'll fight the corrupt to the end. I've been around, but this is it. Every moment right up to this. Every skill, every little gift. I finally feel what it's like to live, and I'm on it. Looking back when I acted on anger, still about it, but now it's prayer. Hoping no longer it has to go there. Till the death, live with no fear. Trump's here, so don't be scared. Put him in checkmate, he'll disappear. People rise up and the future's here. Do it with the realest I know. We're all warriors who live on the road. Even our women are warrior down. Where we're laying our head is our home. This is our path and we're living it now. Closest to freedom we're getting for now. Long as we're breathing, we are not leaving. We're killing these snakes and we're doing it now. Asking me how I created the wave. Putting this knowledge down on the page. Tell the real history. I'm not afraid. Your government lies to you every day. This is for change. This is our right. Fight for today. Fight for tonight. Take it to the grave for a future fight. Now burn a little sage and light the fight. Our mother earth earth is crying. We know that it's a time. We fight for all the children, put our lives upon the line. Warriors, protect the land, we must defend. Warriors, teach the truth to all the youth. Our mother earth is crying. We know that it's a time. We fight for all the children, put our lives upon the line. Warriors, constant break every day. Warriors, always give thanks for everything. Thank the creator for every gift. Hoping on my eyes so I can see the ship. Came at the right time, needed to live. Drove right to the front line, scared to twist. Cut the line, I know they scared of men. You can see it in the eyes that they won't win. We get strategic, they can't believe it, and they go back and make new plan. Have to stay a step ahead, cause they're quick to drag you back. With that barbed wire in your face, rubber bullets to hit your back. Now I'm asking them what's next. Do they wanna fight to a death while they fight for that paycheck? We will die for this land. Dapper Dave trying to make us leave. Never listen to a sellout, they can't leave. January 21st, they're still working. Take care of shit, and that's literally. Last few months, it was wooden donations. Never see the cops with us, they were hating. Sabotage at the top, infiltrating. Do you wanna stop? Cause you're getting baked? What about the babies who have no say? Every other single living thing. But for too long, you silenced our songs. From here on out, you will hear us say, not today will we run away. You might have scared the ones afraid, but the warriors here out here to stay. And we protect our mother until the grave. We know that it's a time. We fight for all the children, put our lives upon the line. Warriors, constant break every day. Warriors, always give thanks for everything. Our mother earth is crying. We know that it's a time. We fight for all the children, put our lives upon the line. Warriors, constant break every day. Warriors, always give thanks for everything. And that's the biggest thing. I am so thankful for every moment that I breathe. Every time I put my feet on the ground. Every time I meet a new person in my life. I'm so thankful for it. So I'm thankful for you guys all sitting here right now, listening to what we have to say. I'm thankful for my brothers and sisters on this journey that I know will be there for life now. I'm thankful for my brother riding with me and knowing that I can trust him to the end. So I'm thankful for it all. I'm thankful for this beautiful planet. I'm thankful for this air. I'm thankful for the creator. Even this rain that just keeps giving enough to give us refreshness while we're standing next to this waste plant and able to still feel good because we know we're in the right and we're fighting those things. Look at, we're right here. This is the front lines here. This is what we do. And we're here to support. And again, thank you. Now we'll go.
And what we were doing by having cultural events such as this was actually trying to also show activists that that there are other ways of communicating about these issues, and trying to engage artists more directly in the work of cultural change, helping to reach people inside. And we think it was successful. People cried at our meetings. People came up to us and told us how transformed they were. And we're really curious to see where this goes. So this project, instead of sort of being a story worth telling, as we were with the paper boats, we were trying to invite people into a story that they were already telling, the story of Standing Rock. How can people see themselves as already part of this, just through locations? And one of the moments from the trip that I think most impacted me was we were staying on a houseboat. I tried to keep the whole trip as close to water as possible. And we were staying on a houseboat, and Hala Lisa, one of the performers you just saw, was on this floating raft, lit by candles, and was doing a performance. And as she was performing, we heard in the background the of one of these trains going by, one of these bomb trains. And, you know, we were in the blast radius almost the entire trip. And this idea of bringing that supreme beauty, that storytelling, the magic, the wonder, and bringing that into the reality that thousands and thousands of people all across this country live with, of knowing they're living inside a blast radius. Tried to bring that juxtaposition together, again, because this is a contradiction that capitalism brings us. It's great beauty, but also great risk. And as I'll begin to close, But there was one comment that JOC, one of the Mohawk artists who you just saw, was said, and it really struck me. We were talking about some of these replica ships of Columbus that were sailing almost our same route. They were showing people around the boats and talking about Columbus. And the day before JOC and the others had joined us, they had been part of an action there of saying, hey, this is not, you're not telling the whole story. And the personal insult by which they all took these boats. And JOC was saying, he's like, you know, these big black ships coming up our waters, our territorial waters. We understand everything to be metaphor. What kind of metaphor are you sharing? And that phrase of we understand everything to be metaphor, I think really grounded this work of why I see artists as so essential to the cultural recreation of the world in these times of climate change is what centuries of colonialism, patriarchy, and imperialism and white supremacy have robbed from us in many ways is the metaphor world, is the world behind the world, is the understanding that nothing is just one thing, that everything has meaning, and that meaning is both a teacher and a life. Um, and I think artists get that. Artists work with this metaphoric space, and that, to me, is the space that must be re-enlivened, nourished, fertilized, and planted new seeds within, so that they can grow, and we can not stop this crisis, but survive through it, and bring something forward for the next 7 generations that will come after.